You talked about, I mean, you and I had some discussions prior to this, and you talked about the young people that just came out in full force, Generation Z coming out. Let's talk about them. What were they doing? Because I know a lot of us would like to think about that generation with their pants hanging down and everything, and they're not about anything, but they're coming out, they're coming out in full force saying, hey, listen, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to my family, and I don't want to ever see this thing again.
Right.
Generation Z, they're making a statement. They're standing tall. So tell us about that.
Go hard.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Leadership with Glassstein, where we take you to the next level. Hey, tonight we got something special for you. Yo, out of all the lives and the interviews that I've done with, with some, with all the people that I've interviewed, this one is special to me. This one is near to my heart. And we're going to be talking to Ashley O. Davis. If you don't know her, she's a motivational speaker and author, and very educated woman. I mean, really appreciate her. We're gonna bring her on as soon as I give her a proper introduction. Very educated, from South Carolina. I mean, just parents, that's just phenomenal parents, that are ministers, that have their, she's part of their church. It's always nice when someone grows up and your dad is the pastor. I grew up like that, so I know, despite all the things that you hear, some of us, we do, we grow up right. We learn some good lessons. We have the incredible Ashley O. Davis, author and speaker, here. Hopefully she'll give us some motivation to continue. You know what I mean? To go on. We need that right now. And let's bring her on. Let's bring her on. Okay, let's bring Ashley on. I added her and we're sharing. Hey, Ashley, how are you?
I'm great.
What's going on? We've been waiting for you, man. We've been waiting for you. I know I kept you on hold, but I was adding to the suspense.
Okay, well, thank you.
Hey, everybody, show Ashley some love. Throw some hearts on there. Share this video with people. Let them, Mr. Legendary. Oh, man. Mr. Legendary. Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for joining. Hey, show Ashley some love. Hit those hearts. Hit those likes. Hit that little airplane button. Tell all your friends that she's here. We have the motivational speaker from South Carolina and author here with us. I mean, she does some incredible things. I wish we can go through some of the incredible things that this young woman is doing, but we're going to try our best to stay on topic tonight. So without further ado, Ashley, I would like to welcome you to Leadership with Glassstein. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy your schedule is. We talk. So thank you very much for, showing up, and, also not only for showing up, but for just having the conversation, this type of conversation about Black Lives Matter, about, being on the front line, being one of the protesters. I've seen the pictures of you out there, with the signs and everything. But before we go into that, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Before we go into that, could you just tell the family a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to say thank you for having me on here. Thank you, Glassstein. But a little bit about myself. I am, like he said, I'm from Florence, South Carolina. And I did grow up in a Christian family home with a preacher and a teacher. My dad is a preacher, my mom is a teacher. uh, Currently, I am a motivational speaker, but my full-time job, I'm an instructional designer. And so that's what I do full-time, just creating engaging learning content for students, or also not just students, but for companies. My background is in education. I taught for 10 years before starting to do instructional design. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I really appreciate that. What school did you go to in South Carolina, Ashley?
In Florence, well, in South Carolina, I went to the College of Charleston for undergrad.
And where did you go for your master's?
I went to South University in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay, so this girl is all about South Carolina. That's why I wanted her today, because she's all about South Carolina. She's always telling me about the fantastic things that are in South Carolina. She never wants to leave South Carolina. South Carolina is home. I love when people just appreciate where they're from and they stand by, their state. And I really want to get into that. But first, before we get into that, let's just talk about you growing up in South Carolina. How was that like? How was it growing up in South Carolina during your time? I mean, if you would just give a little bit about your generation. Your generation, what?
I'm millennial.
Oh, you're a millennial.
Yes, I'm.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the millennials, you growing up in South Carolina, because we're going to transition into what's going on now with the with generation Y and G, Y and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm generation G. G for Glassstein. All right. So yeah, talk about give us a little bit of background how you grew up.
Well, actually in Florence, I went to an all-black elementary school and a predominantly black middle school, and then a predominantly black high school. I went to North Vista Elementary, Williams Middle School, and then I went to Wilson High School. So if people are on here and they're from Florence, then they know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I was the majority. I never felt like I was the minority. I mean, most of the time when you go to church, guess what church looks like? Everybody in church looks like you. And that's how I grew up. Now things have changed. It's a little bit different, but back then that's how it was, And so I was the majority. And until I went to the College of Charleston, that's where I experienced being the minority, especially in the classroom. And that oftentimes was a little bit of a struggle, just because it was a total culture shock, coming from a high school where you're the majority and then going to a college where none of that's like that anymore. You're the only black in the classroom. And so that's my experience pretty much with education here in Florence, and then going to College of Charleston for undergrad.
Was that give us some details about what did you experience as far as being a person of African descent in a predominantly European college. So give us some of those details of what did you experience, and what did you experience around that neighborhood or whatever. Give us some of those details, please.
Well, one thing is I went to the predominantly black high school, but I wasn't actually zoned for that area. In other words, I wasn't supposed to go there because we did not live in that area for that particular school. But it was just kind of like with us, all of my family members went to Wilson High School. And so it was like, oh man, you just always heard such great things about the high school. And every family member went there. So it was like no, almost like no choice that I was going to end up there. And so what I did is I enrolled in the international baccalaureate program, which is an exceptional program. It's above AP classes in high school. And I was in that program, which allowed me to then go to that particular high school. So when it came to the curriculum and being challenged, I was always challenged because I was in that program. I was in that program starting from 7th grade until my junior year of high school. And so it was always challenging. And in the International Baccalaureate program, the IB program, I had the opportunity to, my students alongside me were of different backgrounds, because everybody wanted to be a part of this challenging program. And so I was used to that. But then when I got to the College of Charleston and being in the classroom, there were some things that I wasn't used to, like the conversation. I remember one particular example, I was in a communication class. It was my freshman year. And the instructor, the professor, was using Seinfeld, the TV show. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. I know what you're talking about.
Seinfeld, the TV show, in order to explain one of the communication theories. And everyone else in the class got it except for me. I was totally disconnected. I didn't know anything about Seinfeld. I grew up on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, Living Single. You know, I'm a 90s kid. I'm an 80s baby. So those were the TV shows I grew up on. Family Matters. You know, I didn't know anything about Seinfeld, never knew existed. And so here, he's trying to explain a communication theory that I need to know, you know, for exams. And I couldn't get the connection. And so at that point in time, I learned that at the College of Charleston, that, you know, it's not going to be totally inclusive. You're going to feel like you're not included sometimes. But it was my responsibility to make sure that I knew what that episode was talking about. So oftentimes what I would do is have to get on, you know, the internet and Google or ask somebody else, like, what is Seinfeld and what is this communication theory? What is it all about? You know, what's the connection between the two? So that's pretty much how it was for me. At the College of Charleston, I did experience some things, but there were some great programs that I was a part of, like Black Student Union. I pledged while I was in college. So those types of things, those organizations, those programs that kept me connected to my community while being, you know, a minority at the college.
Well, let's talk about your connection, and I know that you're very connected in your community, as far as, you know, with you know, people, you know, that's in the government, and state, and so, and I know your parents are very active in the community also, and that's really what I want to talk about right now, because we're talking about, you know, you being in the front lines, because as soon as you heard about, you know, the tragedy that happened in Minneapolis, to Mr. Floyd, you know, you were ready to go out there. Let me understand when you first heard that, your reactions and what prompted you. I mean, what prompted you to just, you know, just say, hey, you know what, I gotta go out there? I mean, because I know you probably would have been the first out there. If you would have been out there by yourself, you probably would have been the first out there. So what is that motivation for you?
Well, one thing I could tell you, going back to the College of Charleston, when I was a student at the College of Charleston, I don't know if you remember Jenna 6.
Yes.
So that occurred my senior year, I think, at the College of Charleston. And at that time, like I told you, I was part of Black Student Union. I was in the sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. So I was a part of these organizations. And so what happened was, I wanted to go. I wanted to go protest. And my parents at that time was like, no, you shouldn't go, and all that kind of stuff. And so at that point in time, you know, me still being kind of young, I could not go and travel because, you know, my parents didn't want me to. But now it's totally different. And so now it's a different story. And so I saw that, and because it happened after so many things too, you know, Breonna Taylor had just happened.
Right.
Then before that, Ahmaud had just happened. And
Right.
so many things were led up to that moment.
Right.
And I just felt like there has to be a change. Something has to be done. For a while, I think that when it came to matters and those types of situations, I would be quiet.
Right.
And when I say be quiet, like when I'm around my Caucasian peers at work, I wouldn't bring it up, or I wouldn't address the topic, or I wouldn't speak to them about it or about how I really felt, even though it hurts. I wouldn't
Right.
speak about it because I didn't want to appear non-professional, or I didn't want to appear as an angry Black woman. You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard for me, you see me now, it's hard for me not to speak with my hands. It's
Right.
hard for me to not use full volume. You know,
Right.
it's just in me. Whatever I'm passionate about, I'm a motivational speaker. So whatever I'm passionate about, it's going to come across. And you're going to tell that I'm passionate about it. And so oftentimes in the workplace, you know, you don't want to appear as an angry Black woman. So I would just pipe down and I wouldn't say anything. But when this happened, I felt like, Ashley, maybe you've been holding back. You know, you need to speak up and speak out against things that are wrong. Even in the workplace, sometimes they'll say a cruel joke and we'll just let it roll off our backs. But the thing is, you know, that's racist.
Right.
And if you don't call people out on it, they'll never know about how you really feel.
Right. Right. Man, that's I mean, one of the things I can say is that if you guys have never seen the video on what happened, that video is it's hard to watch that video. It is very hard to watch that video. I mean, I know I want to get into this protest thing, but before I mean, some of you are seeing the protests, you're seeing people looting and everything. Before you pass judgment, watch that video.
Right.
Watch that video.
Right.
Before you do that, before you say anything, watch that video.
Yeah.
Not condoning what's happening, not saying that is right, but watch that video. I'm just saying to watch the video because it will do something. It will change something within you.
Right.
You know. So Ashley, you're there. Okay, now you're out there. You're in the front lines. You're protesting. I mean, what do you see? What's going on around you? How are police interacting? What type of people are you seeing? What's going on?
Well, one thing here, it wasn't like you may have seen on the news and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Even before I went out there, we heard all kind of stuff about people saying, well, be safe, because they said this was going to happen and this was going to happen and that was going to happen and these people were going to show up. And we just heard all kind of stuff. But I didn't allow that to, you know, bring in fear to what I felt that I needed to do, which was stand up for what I believe in, you know? And so I didn't let that scare me from anything. Most of the time I just ignored it. You know, everybody was like, well, be safe. And I was like, well, yeah, I'll be safe, you know? And so I didn't go alone. I, you know, went with some other people, and I've been having a conversation all day with people about who was going and that type of thing. And I was a part of a Facebook group, the people who organized it, the young people who organized it, who are actually a part of, I think, Gen Z. They were the ones who organized it. I was a part of their Facebook group, and they kept communication with us the whole time. And so, you know, I'm an artist. I don't know if I said that to you before in my introduction, but I'm an artist. So what I did was I grabbed some posters, some paint, and I made some posters, and I was going out there to tell people that Black lives do matter, you know, and it matters to me. And that's kind of like been my theme throughout this whole thing. It matters to me. You know, even when I'm talking to my coworkers now, I'm saying this matters to me. This is important to me. It matters.
Right. So what are some of the conversations that you were hearing as you were, you know, on the front lines? What are some of the conversation that you hear that people are talking about? Some of the conversation you engaged in, were people really, really angry, or you know, what was that mood like?
Now
Or it
we
was
were.
kind of, or was it kind of solemn? It was just kind of like, hey, you know what? We need to address this.
Well, I went to two. We had one last week on Wednesday and Thursday, I think, if I'm correct. So I went to both of those. The first one, I think we did not know what to expect because there was so much conversation. There was a lot of conversation around the protests last week. You know, people saying that negative things were going to happen and this and that. But none of that actually happened. None of that actually happened at all. I did not have the opportunity to be there early and see the speaking and, you know, hear everybody speak. But that was one of the big ones that Wednesday. Now, Thursday, I went to a smaller protest in our city. And at that particular one, I do remember seeing officers, even having a conversation with one of the officers. I had a conversation with him, and our conversation was basically about respect. You know, this is what this really is about. It's about respect. You know, you're respecting another person. If you saw the video, you saw the man with his foot on with his knee, on George Floyd's neck, and you saw him have his hands in his pocket the entire time as if it didn't even matter, you know? And the people who are recording the video and the people who are standing there, they are basically beckoning with him saying, hey man, could you just please check his pulse? Can you please just, he stopped talking. Can you just please see what's wrong? And they were like, oh, his nose is bleeding. And the girl, she was like, well, I work, you know, for, I think it was EMT. She said, I work for them. And she was like, can you just please, you know, check his pulse? You know, just please. People were just pleading with him and he did nothing. He just did nothing. And so, like the officer said, and this was a Caucasian officer who I talked to Thursday, it's about you respecting another life. And I just feel that they, you know, the officers in that situation, they did not. You know, people were beckoning with him, just check his pulse, just lift your knee up, you know, just lift it up a little bit. They were saying all those kind of things and just not getting any response from those officers. So that's the conversation that I had with one of the Caucasian officers at the protest that day. A young girl, she had got overheated. And so he was there doing everything that he could, you know, to help her, you know, to give her water. At the protest, there were all races there, all nationalities, all backgrounds. It's not just Black people who are saying Black Lives Matter. There are other people who are saying things. One of my coworkers said she works at, not my coworker, but one of my friends, she worked at CVS. And she said someone came to her at CVS and they said, I just want you to know, all of us are not like that. And that's true. And that's one thing that we have to keep in mind, that just because you see this action from one person, we can't deem that all of them act like that. So a part of this protest, we had a lot of people just saying Black Lives Matter.
You talked about, I mean, you and I had some discussions prior to this, and you talked about the young people that just came out in full force, Generation Z coming out. Let's talk about them. What were they doing? Because I know a lot of us would like to think about that generation with their pants hanging down and everything, and they're not about anything, but they're coming out, you know, they're coming out in full force saying, hey, listen, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to my family, and I don't want to ever see this thing again. You know, right. Generation Z, they're making a statement. They're standing tall. So tell us about that.
Well, like I said before, the organizers for the first protest that we had in Florence, South Carolina, they were Gen Z. They were part of Generation Z. And so one thing I can say is that I admire that generation because they don't take a whole lot of mess. Do you know what I'm saying?
They don't.
And they don't. And I mean, if they're working on a job and they don't like it, forget handing in a 2-week notice. They go, you know, it's like, see you. And so I can say that I truly admire that generation because that same mentality goes into what they believe in and how they feel that people should be treated. And so when I was out there, I saw a lot of young people with their posters, with their T-shirts, chanting. So it was so powerful because you could see not just people from one generation, but it was people from, it was multi-generational. You know, you could see baby boomers out there. I'm a millennial. I was out there. You could see the Gen Z, you know, the ones who started the protests in our city. So you could see all of them out there just fighting for what we believe in.
So let me ask you this. Do you think, you know, let's just talk about South Carolina because that's where you're at. Do you think officials in South Carolina, do they get it? Are they listening to the protesters? I mean, what type of vibes are you getting from the officials in South Carolina?
I don't know. I think people are listening now, you know, because it's kind of quiet. And when I say it's quiet, because of the quarantine, because of the pandemic, we don't have a lot of stuff going on like we would normally have. When that video was on the internet and it was all over social media, people saw it. Now, this is South Carolina, so we've had a lot happen here. It was only a couple of years ago that the Confederate flag came down, you know, or was that last year? That was recent. That was recent when that happened. And then, of course, you heard about what happened at the church in Charleston with the members of that church, along with the pastor, they were killed by a white guy,
right?
A white young man. So we've had a lot of things happen here. And I talked to someone at the protest who was from North Carolina, which isn't far at all. They were from, I think, Raleigh, North Carolina. And he told me, he said, one thing I can say about, you know, the people who live here, and particularly Florence, that y'all are kind of, I think the word he used maybe was kind of like compliant. Like, you know, you just kind of go along with whatever is happening and you don't speak out too much. And when he said that, I was almost a little bit offended, but then I had to think about what he was saying and I thought it was really right. We've had so much happening here. We had another shooting happen in Charleston and a young Black man was shot by a cop. And all those things happen. But the one thing that I can say, we as a people who were against that, you know, not just the Black community, but everybody who was against that type of treatment, we were not consistent in our protest. And I think right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to be consistent and tell you, like, this is, you know, this is frustrating, you know, to see that, you know, my grandparents had to go through this. My parents had to go through this. And you're telling me that I'm still going through this? Yeah. Like, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating that that you don't think that we deserve respect. You know, like, you don't see it that, you know, Black lives really do matter. So I think it's at this point that we're just frustrated. You know, we've done so many things, even as a nation, you know, so many people have taken stands and so many people have done this and that. And it's like, you're not getting your voices heard. And so I think at this time, what makes it different is that we're putting more attention to it. We're putting more focus on it. I'm trying to do all I can to make it known and to protest in the way that I can.
I think another thing that makes it different is the fact that we're doing it as a community. You know,
Right.
as a leader, I believe in inclusion, right? And it takes a village to raise a, you know, there's an old African proverb say that it takes a village to raise a child, right? It means that we were always part of a community. And one of the things that you see is that we're coming together as a community, not just as a community of, you know, African people, you know, or Spanish people. We're coming together as a community. All races, all genders are coming together and saying, hey, this has to stop. You know, before in the 80s, when I was growing up in Miami, and you know, guys were getting shot and killed left and right. When we protested, when we was in Overtown, you know, burning up cars and doing all this crazy stuff, it wasn't, it was us. It wasn't a community.
Right.
Today, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. It's a community. I mean, you got people in Europe, all over Europe, burning up police cars, looting. I mean, tearing down statues. I mean, the world is coming together. The world is seeing, hey, one of the things that the media does, and I'm gonna say this, one of the things that the media is a very powerful weapon. And one of the things that it did was it completely put people of African descent in a negative light all over the world. But you know what happened? We started to travel. And we got to know some of those people. And they got to know us, because that has happened to me. And they got to know us. And they're like, wow, I thought you guys were, you know, gangsters. And when they look at me, they just can't, it doesn't compute. And now they're saying, you know, they've seen so many of us out there in Europe, out there in the South America, all over the world. I mean, even in Russia. I mean, they gotten to know us, and they're like, hey, that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You can't treat them like that.
Right.
I mean, for years, we believed it. We fell into the misconception. We fell into the, you know, the movie Boys in the Hood. For years, we believed that garbage. But we work with these people. We talk to these people. We go to meetings with these people. They're not like that. And so this is the consciousness of the world is just shifted. It's like, this can't continue. We're not having it. And my applaud is to the young people, because if you look out there, there's some older people. There's some Generation X. There's some baby boomers. Few, but there are some. You'll see them. They're in the back. But you know. But the fact is, it's the young people that are standing up and saying, this has to stop.
Mm-hmm. Right.
My man's Floyd brother. He it's all over the news. You guys can Google it, whatever, if you haven't heard about it. He went to a congressional hearing today, and his only plea was, make this stop.
Right.
That was his plea. Make this stop. So Ashley, if you could stand up in front of the protesters, all the protesters, and you can give them your heartfelt message, what would you tell them? Because I know a lot of people are saying that it's wrong to loot and all of this stuff. They're getting into the minutia of things. They're not seeing the real, the real issue. They're going into, you know, they're being distracted by the other things. But there's a like I tell people, watch the videotape and you'll understand why some people just snap.
Right.
So if you could stand in front of them, if you could stand in front of all these young people, all these people of different races, holding hands and just locking arms together and saying this should stop, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, I don't think racism is something that is taught. Is taught. Racism is something that's taught. And being an educator, one thing that I would love to do is to think, go back and have a conversation and see how we can redo curriculum, especially history lessons.
Yes.
You know, see, I think it needs to be done because the way that it's taught in history is negative when you think about it. It's very negative. And I think that we should do a little bit more positive with the way that we're teaching it, so it comes across the way that it should. So that the history lessons about African Americans, about Black people, even about slavery, comes across the way that it should. And I just don't feel that that's happening. And of course, when it comes to Black history, you know, I didn't have the opportunity to take African American history or African American literature until I was in college. No one taught me that in high school. No one taught me that in middle school. No one taught me that in elementary. You know, we learned about the same few people that everybody learned about. It's Harriet Tubman, it's Rosa Parks, it's Dr. Martin Luther King. You know, it's the same people all the time. But let's change that. Let's change the way that we're teaching. And I hear teachers, my sister is a teacher, and I told you my mom was a teacher. And I hear my sister tell me, she'll say, well, you know, I'm trying to do that in my classroom, but let's not let you just try to do it in your classroom. Everybody needs to be doing this in the schools. You know, we need to go back to these lessons. So if I could stand up in front of a crowd of people and say anything, it's let's change something, and let's change it with our children. Because if we can change it with our children, guess what? It won't go any further than what is, you know, than that. It'll stop there. So let's change it with our children. And then we got to change it within ourselves. We have to change it within ourselves. And I think one of the big things with racism is realizing that we may do some little things that may say or qualify us as a racist. You know, we just don't even realize it. But it's the little things we do. You know, like a person, like a white lady may clutch her purse when a Black guy walks by. You know, you're profiling. You know, you're profiling him. You're saying that because he's Black, he's going to steal your purse. Like, maybe, you know, you're just profiling. So there's a lot of things that we do that we don't even own up to. So I think it's a part of people seeing themselves, taking a deep look in the mirror and seeing themselves. And then number two, changing how we teach our children. So this stops right here and it doesn't go any further.
Yeah, I sincerely believe in a reform that is needed for the educational system. One of the things that I you know, like you said it well when you said that we learn about these few people that look like us, you know, and somehow it seems like that's supposed to appease us somehow.
Right.
And our whole concept of history is that we were a dominated people. and that's not true. That's not true. That's not true at all. And I think one of the things that I would say to a crowd of people, I would say that, hey, you know what? Let's continue to band together on this. Let's continue having, you know, let's get some officials down here to talk to us. Let's focus that energy to get people that can make a decision in front of us, because I think that's what we need. We need people that can make decisions. We need to be in front of those people. We need them to hear us. And that's and I'm glad that, you know, Floyd's brother went to had that hearing today, because those are the decision makers.
Right.
Those are the decision makers. He was at the right place today. And I'm so proud of him for standing tall and doing that. Well, Ashley, just want to give you, you know, the last word. You know, what do you want to say to this audience? Are you going to continue protesting? Where are you going to be continuing to protest? And what are your plans going forward?
Yes, I do plan to continue to protest. And if I could tell, you know, everybody who's watching, I think we should continue to protest as well. Like you said, banding together, and don't let up until we see change occur. Like,
Yeah.
Don't stop. We need to be consistent.
Yeah.
I watched the video. I can't remember, what was it, 380? We talked about it the other day. 381. Was it 381?
Yeah, 381.
The number of days that they protested. Was it for the bus boycott? Was that it?
Yeah, the Montgomery bus boycott. Yep.
Right. They protested that long. So this can't be something that we just stop doing because the media tries to, you know, take our attention away to something else. You know, we can't let that happen. We can't let the media distract us from what we really want to see changed. Okay. What I plan on doing is I'm getting with a few people because, like I told you before, I'm an artist. And so one of the ways that I want to show that Black Lives Matter and to band people together as a community is to create a mural. Some murals have already been done in my city, but I want to create another mural. And I want to go all across my city, you know, in areas, in parks and everything, and do what I would call beautification, but also promoting unity within those communities, especially the Black communities, and just doing something positive. And, you know, anything that I can just to pull people together and promote that Black Lives Matter, because this matters to us.
Yes. Well, let me open the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions for Ashley, go ahead and ask right now. I have some questions. So, but I want to give you the audience opportunity to ask her anything you want. Let's ask her some questions, man. Let's see, and it could be some thoughts, your comments, or whatever. Let me read and see if there's some thoughts or comments here. I don't see any. Do you see any?
I don't think I do.
I know, Felicia, you have some questions. If I don't see questions in the next minute or two, I'm going to ask my last questions, and we will call it quits from there.
I see someone said I would love to go and visit. I don't know if they're talking about Florence. I don't.
Hey, they have a whole, wherever you're at, I'm sure they're having a whole bunch of protests over there. So if you guys don't have any questions, I'll just ask my my last question, and then we'll call it a night. My last question is this. If you were standing in front of the police and you had an opportunity to share your heart with the police, what would you say to them?
Wow, I never thought about that. One thing I would say, I watched a video today. I'm gonna start off with a story. I watched this video today. It was a clip of Sanford and Son. Have you watched Sanford and Son?
Sanford and Son?
So, yeah, have you watched it?
With Red Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Okay, so there was a clip of Sanford and Son, and he was, I guess it was some case with Lamont, and Lamont got in trouble with the police officer. It must be a driving situation or something. And so he's there in front of them, and he asked him, he says, what do you have? So it's a Caucasian police officer. He says, what do you have against Black drivers? And then the judge, you know, he bangs the gavel and he's like, you're not supposed to say this in court and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, sir, I'm just asking him, what does he have against Black people? Because it's hard for a Black man here. And he's like, and the judge was like, well, it's not hard for me. And he's like, well, you the judge, you know. But it's funny. It's funny. But what captured my attention was that was 1974. That was 1974. It's 2020. And this was a situation with an officer stopping a Black driver. And it just seems like nothing is changing. And I don't know if I want to ask the same question that Red Fox did and said, what do you have against Black people? But I think sometimes people will put you in a
valid
category.
Question.
Yeah.
It's a valid question.
But I think sometimes people will put you in a category and think because you're this race, because you're Black, because your skin is brown and it's not lighter than a paper bag, they will say or they will think these things about you without even knowing you.
Right.
Not everybody who is stopped by a cop is, you know, going to be disrespectful. I remember at my church, we had an entire session at my church about what Black people should do when they are stopped by a white officer. And this was like in 2018. This is like a couple of years ago. At my church, we had this big meeting and we invited Black officers to come and tell us what we should do. That shouldn't even have to be. Like, we shouldn't even have to have that conversation, you know, but we do. So I don't know. I guess my question would be like, Red Fox, what do you have against Black people? Like, what is it? What is it? I mean, what is it? I don't really even understand. I don't understand. I watched the video of George Floyd. I watched him when he was down on that ground. I watched them as they beat him in the SUV. Did you see that one?
No.
There's a video out there where they are beating him in the SUV. I watched all of that, and that's prior to him being on the ground. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I just don't understand. And so I don't understand the treatment. Like, is this something that they are taught? Is this something that they believe? Why the treatment? Why this harsh treatment against one race? Like, what is it? And so I don't know. I have a lot of
it's a valid question. It's a valid question. And I would think that even the police force needs to revamp their training and education. Because one of the things that I do understand, you know, having friends and family in the police force, I do understand that it's a dangerous job. And sometimes you don't always come home. But what the police have to understand is that we are all not the threat. as a people, we are not the threat. You know, even though there are threats out there, but as what they're doing, they're generalizing us and saying all of you are the threat. You know, they're making, assumptions, as soon as they stop you, that their life is in danger. You know, even if you're wearing a suit, even if you have a master's degree, even if you stay in the most affluent neighborhoods, they don't care. Right. So that's a very valid question, and I like that, and I'm not going to, I'm not even going to try to say anything after that. I like that question so much. I'm gonna let it marinate in everyone's mind. If you like that question, go ahead and hit that love button. Give us some love. If you got some value from this talk, go ahead and share it with your friends. I'll put some segments of it in IG so you can look at it, and go ahead and give us some love. Click that like button, whatever that thing is, and go, let those bubbles go up and all this stuff, and show us some love.
Stuck or something. I don't see.
I see them.
Okay, I can't see anything.
Yeah, I see them. I think your book is there too. Is your book there?
My book?
You have your book there?
With me?
No, is it somewhere on there? Do you have a link to it or whatever?
No, I don't, but I can put one up, or if anybody DMs me, I can email it to them.
I will put her information, or she can just write down her information. If you could put your information down there, Ashley, and so the people can DM you and get that book. It's a book that will help you through this times. It's a book that'll help you through challenges. Read her book and you'll get a sense of what she's all about. And if there's no questions, I'm opening the floor once more. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please share them with us. I would love to hear your comments. This group is so quiet. I mean, it's like he done asked all the questions, and then so I'm good. I get it. I'm with you. So yeah. So I'm also looking for volunteers, people that are police officers. I'm also looking for some police officers. If you know any police officers that I can interview, please DM me and put me in contact with them. I would love to interview a police officer, a couple of police officers, one female and one male. I would love to get their perspective on what's going on, and just for them to share their thoughts with us. So if you have any police officers out there, or a protester who has gone to jail, I would love to talk to them too, and just to find out how they've been treated and what's going on out there. I want to keep my ears to the ground on this, and really bring you guys some real people that's on the ground floor. This is what we need. We need to talk. We need to hear from some real people. So Ashley, thank you very much for this conversation. We are so much better for this conversation. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to have you on again, and hope to see, hey, vlog your stuff, man. When you out there in that protesting and everything, show us some clips and everything of what's going on, and your artwork. Definitely have someone kind of put that on. I have a picture of that little girl that you drew on the sidewalk. I gotta use that picture. You gotta let me use that picture, because
that's fine.
it says a lot. It says a lot. Yeah. Very beautiful picture. Fine.
Yeah. So when I'm out there sweating, I'll try to get some video.
Yeah,
I have more respect for our civil rights leaders who march, because I mean, that's no joke. They marched in church shoes and suits, and here we are marching in leggings and t-shirts, and some people can barely make it out there. So I have even more respect for those who have done that before us.
And if you're and if anybody, if you're on this live and you want to come on and say something, DM me, and we'll see if we can pencil you in one of these days and let you say something. I might just do an impromptu live, and just to hear your thoughts, because we do need to hear from you. We need to hear from people that are real, people that are on the front lines. All right. So with that said, I am going to say goodnight. Thank you very much for another amazing live. So I really appreciate you guys for joining me. And thank you again, Ashley. I am out of here. Good night.
Bye.
Peace. Hey, I know that was kind of heavy, but if you want to see more leadership tips like this that could take your leadership to the next level, click on this video right here, right next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.